Forget trying to keep up with AI. It's moving too fast. It's time to think differently about it. Welcome to the AI Readiness Project, hosted by Kyle Shamim and Ann Murphy. They're here to help you build the mindset to thrive in an AI-driven world and prepare for what's next.
Ann Murphy.
Kyle Shannon, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in California, so eventually I'll be back at home with my setup. Last week I was in Salt Lake City. Today I'm in California. So these walls.
They are beige. They are
beige. Every time I'm on the show so far.
Yeah. I am not offended, nor inspired.
Beige is, you show up, you wear beige, right? We're the mother-in-law at the wedding.
Exactly. How's your brain holding up?
Brain is a little bit scattered. Not in a bad way per se, but I have been delving.
So this script was written by AI?
This script was written by AI in this ever-evolving landscape. I've been delving into. I've been back at it with learning new things, and so my brain has been melting a little bit. How about you?
Well, so I've had some epiphanies too. So why don't we just jump right in? So let's start in. How ready for AI are we this week?
You start.
Okay. So I got newly invigorated and inspired this week. I have been in a funk for probably 2 months.
Yeah.
Where I can't keep up. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, don't worry about not keeping up, but I still want to keep up, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's part of it. And then there's also been this overhang of like just feeling like anything that I learn now is going to be useless because the tools are accelerating so fast that at some point, all the stuff I'm learning to manually duct tape together and get to do right, at some point it's going to be so good that I won't need to do that. So there's a part of me, because I kind of know what's coming, there's a part of me that has lost that sense of play. And that's been making me really sad because it's like we're so lucky to be living in these times where we get to play with these things. So the other night on my TikTok live, I was demonstrating a new feature. So Luma Labs created a new model called Ray 2 Flash. It's faster. And one of its things it does is you can use emojis as the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just kind of a silly toy, right? It's like a silly parlor trick. But what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, write me a story, right? Come up with a 10-segment story where you write 5 emojis for each scene. And then I copied and pasted those into Luma Labs and it made these videos. And so as I was doing, I was describing how I did it to my audience, and someone in the audience says, well, show me. Like, how do you do it? So I started showing, and then as I got into it, and it was making the scenes, I was getting inspired by what the scenes it was making.
Yeah.
And it kind of had this sort of weird kind of feel, and it reminded me of the show Severance. And then I thought, oh, we can go make music that sounds like Severance. And then Luma Labs also has this new thing where you can take any video, which is silent, and you can add sound to it. So you can say, it'll add sound effects. It'll add someone talking. It'll add, And so I went through and I just very, very quickly added sounds to these things. And I threw them in a video editor with this music I wrote in Suno. And within about, 45 minutes, an hour, I had this minute-long film that was weird and nonsensical, but it was really kind of cool. And someone on the live said, oh, it's like vibe, it's like vibe movie making or something like that, playing off of this idea of vibe coding. And so if you don't know what vibe coding is, Andrej Karpathy coined this term February 2nd of 2025. And it's basically when you're using these no-code AI tools where you can just talk an app into existence. He said, there's this new thing I do called vibe coding. And what hit me just like a ton of bricks is that, vibe storytelling is every bit as much a thing as vibe coding. That I went into this tool, like I don't know what those emojis meant, but they made videos that when I stitched them together kind of told a story. Mm-hmm. But I didn't go in there with any expectations whatsoever, but I got really inspired. So for me, like what hit me was there's all sorts of different modes you can be in with AI. One of them is I want to be very intentional. I've got a thing I want to write. I want to use AI to write it more efficiently. There's another mode, which is this sort of vibe mode, where you're just like, I'm just going to go play and I'm going to let whatever emerges out of this thing be the inspiration or not, right? Like it could just be, I'm going to have fun with it. But then sometimes an idea will come up that's so good that you're like, ooh, I want to pursue that. And like the musical that I'm working on right now was one of those where this idea just popped up. So it hit me this week that I've been vibe storytelling for 2 years. But now I kind of have a word for it. And it's this low expectation, high play AI.
I saw that part where you were making, when you were taking the emojis and creating images based on them and then going over, and the person in the chat was doing a really beautiful job of kind of bringing you along by asking the questions that sometimes we forget to ask anymore, which is like, how did you do that? Oh my gosh, how did you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
And, even like the term vibe coding, I heard in an interview where Andrei Karpathy was talking about it. And then I've heard it mentioned a few other times. And right when we were getting ready for the show, you said, Anne, do you know what vibe coding was? And I had this second of like, I don't want to admit that I don't really know. Because it depends on the setting, like how comfortable you are saying, I don't really know, and think it's you. And I can't say I do know when I don't know, because then I might have to talk about it. And we literally had like 30 seconds. So, but it was another reminder, because I've kind of been in this space recently with like, I'm starting to learn new things again, but I'm having the feeling that you get when you're being stretched, where you worry that you're not quite going to get it at the end of trying to do something. I'm starting
that you won't accomplish the thing you're setting out to do.
Yeah. Of probably what a lot of people on the sidelines feel like, I want to try to learn this thing, but I don't know if I'm going to get the outcome that I want. So is it ready? Is it worth it for me to try to learn a new thing? And part of it is that I do not spend very much time playing in AI. I have become very use the tool, crush it, make it bend to your will to get the outcome that you're looking for. Very Gen X, very firstborn.
I was going to say, I'm not going to call you an overachiever, Anne. I'm not going to do it.
Right. But so I'm fine tuning and hammering on these very specific things. And those are making me feel accomplished. Mm-hmm. But I haven't been doing as many things that are fun recently. So I think, where I am with my readiness, it's I have all this intuition. I can see how all the pieces fit together because of, things like Festivus and the Readiness training program. It's I'm there, but along the way, somehow I decided that it was too overwhelming to pay attention to everything, which I do think is a good call. Yep. But I cut out all, I haven't even used Midjourney in probably 2 months. Not even opened it. And I was using Midjourney every single day. I don't even know how to make videos. I need to start doing some more things that are fun, because I've started to think of AI in a very pedestrian, it's sort of just like oxygen. It's like Excel, more of a tool than something that's as creative and fascinating as it really is.
I think that's a very natural instinct, for one thing, because that's that's how computers have always acted for us, right?
Right.
What computers have always been is a way to do our existing work more efficiently. And I think when I first started digging into AI, where I immediately went was efficiency and automations. Oh, let me go do automations and let me make my existing work more efficient. And the play piece is where we discover the generative part of generative AI, right?
Yeah.
Because it can, sort of augment your ideas and amplify your ideas and amplify your humanity. And that's why this week was such a big deal for me, because I had kind of lost that joy.
Yeah.
And so I got back in touch with it in making that film. And you know what it almost was, Anne? It was giving myself permission to have no expectations.
Yes.
And especially with AI Learning Lab, I mentioned this on the live, like I named it the AI Learning Lab. So I have this self-imposed pressure that if I don't know what I'm doing and if I'm not teaching, then it's not good. And what I kind of discovered was the joy of it doesn't really, I can just play and maybe someone will get something out of it and maybe they won't. And I feel like for you similarly, like find a way to give yourself permission to just like have it not be about accomplishing something for the thing. Maybe there's just a little moment of joy. Make yourself a little flower next to a pond if that's the thing that would calm you down, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think there's something that happens, and I don't know what the folks who are like still on the sidelines, I don't know what you started integrating as being a normal thing. That's true. Fury 63. I think that this conversation is like reminding me not to take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's the other side of feeling like I'm symbiotic with it, is that it's just like, whatever,
Yeah. I got that thing. Yeah, whatever. And the problem with that is, so if you've gotten really good at whatever, writing emails or writing a draft proposal, whatever it is, right? You likely miss the fact that maybe the tool's gotten way better and it can do something that you previously discounted, that, it can't really do that yet. Well, maybe it can now, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of it also, part of that play thing. Because one of the things I've noticed, in fact, let me show you our this title. So the little picture that we have here of Adnan, I just had a little square image that didn't have the background on it.
Yes.
Midjourney can now very, very easily, you just sort of erase the crap around his head and say, make me a background. And it just automatically made it there. And it's like the tools are getting so good. They're just getting.
Did you do use the image and then like a reference? Did you put a reference photo in or something like that?
I used a mood board. I've got a mood board with all of our graphics.
See, that's what it is. So this is like the beginner's experience of I haven't learned how to use mood boards yet. So now I won't let myself use Midjourney until I learn how to use the mood boards.
Yeah, because you're not perfect. But like I totally get it. And there's just a magic in Midjourney of just go in there and put a one-word prompt in with nothing else.
Yes.
And just again, the thing I discovered this week of being willing to have no expectations.
Yes.
And just, you don't have to master it. And in giving yourself permission to not master it, you'll maybe click on a few more things and you'll master it, right? It's the counterintuitive.
Yep. I'm going to draft off of your renewed sense of play because, we've talked about it. Like, you're right. Like the last couple of months, you've brought it up a number of times that you've kind of been in like a lull phase or a plateau or some word like that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you're going to play again, I'll play again. How about that?
Deal. Love it. I love it. All right, good. So let's now... Let me, here's one thing to pay attention to this week. You asked me before we got started, what's the thing we're going to pay attention to this week? I don't have a good answer for it this week. What I'm going to talk about is this new thing that came out of China called Manus that everyone's talking about. And I'll briefly describe what it is, and then I'll talk about why I think it's worth paying attention to. One is just it's made a lot of noise, right? There are very few things that come out that kind of take over Twitter. Like one of the ways that I pay attention to things going on is, do I see it mentioned more than once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally you'll see something that's mentioned 2 or 3 times, and then more rarely 5 or 6 times. Manus has been, dozens and dozens of times. It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. It has a similar kind of buzz to DeepSeek when DeepSeek R1 came out, where it was this model that was as good as the new stuff that was from OpenAI, and it tanked the stock market by $1.2 trillion in market cap. Manus hasn't had the investment impact yet, but it is a tool that's very much like OpenAI's Operator on steroids. So if you don't know, OpenAI's Operator can basically spin up a web browser, and it can surf the web. It can use a mouse, and it can use keyboard, and you give it a goal, and it just goes and uses websites, and it asks you to log in, and it does all that sort of stuff. Well, Manus does that like way amplified. It can spin up 50 different web browsers at the same time and go search 50 different web browsers. It can write code. It's got logic in it. It's got reasoning in it. So it's mixed together all these different piece parts. Everybody assumed that this was a new kind of frontier model company. This was a new big player coming out of China. What it turns out is that they're actually using Claude 3.5, the API for Claude, not even the new 3.7. That's coming from them. And then so Claude 3.5 has the ability to use other applications. It's this thing called MPC or MCP. I think it's MPC, where it can use other applications. So Manus is Claude plus 36 applications that they've written, all working in concert together. Here's why I think it's important. They took effectively off-the-shelf technology, the Claude 3.5 API. Maybe they wrote some of these applications. Maybe they were open source. Who knows what it is? But there's 36 of them that are all working in concert. They stitched them all together. So I don't know how many people work at that company, but what it says to me is smaller, more nimble companies, if they're clever, are going to be able to stitch together some of these AI tools in ways that are going to be massively disruptive to big companies, big corporations. And I don't think it's just limited to AI companies, right? I think it's any business right now, they lay off 10% of their workforce. 3 or 4 of those people that they laid off might go off and spin up some technology that is a direct competitor to them 2 months later.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that's the thing that I think is worth paying attention to, just because, like, for me, the phrase that just keeps popping into my head is the acceleration continues. This isn't slowing down. The overwhelm that we're feeling is still accelerating, and it's going to still feel overwhelming. And I don't think it's going to get better. Yeah.
And the readiness component of that is, who is ready for this, Kyle? Who is ready for this particular genre of acceleration with Manus? Like
no one,
right?
No one. And it's there's a part of me that is still in denial, right? About, well, maybe it won't be that bad. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be bad, but I think all of us are going to have to adapt. We're going to have to change. And I don't think there's any escaping it. And so for me, AI readiness is about choosing to be adaptable, choosing to be curious enough to at least know that it's coming. Because for me, what's worse than sort of, really crazy change, accelerating change, is having that change happen to you when you're not even aware of it. And I think a lot of people are going to face that. And that to me makes it really sad.
That part is really sad. So what do you think happens in, say, like the normal everyday person, right? They're just like doing their life. They're dealing with, grocery prices and the craziness of our world and being tired and disappointing everybody around them, and right, and also somehow trying to self-actualize. What happens? What is it going to look like when all of a sudden the DeepSeek moment is like no big deal, because the Manus moment is like, this just catapults us into a whole new world? How are they going to get on board? Or what is it going to be like for the people who are having this happen to them?
I don't know. I was thinking a lot about this. I think about you and I are both self-motivated human beings, right? We're entrepreneurial. We want to be self-expressed. We want to, right? There's something about that's in our DNA. I tend to gravitate to those kind of people that have that in them.
Same.
A lot of the world is not that.
Yeah.
A lot of the world wants to show up to a job and be told what to do and punch in at 9 and leave at 5 and not really have to think about it, just do it. One of the things I learned as an entrepreneur is that businesses really need those kind of people. But does AI do all that work? Because that work where it's just like, show up, make the donuts kind of work, that's the kind of stuff that AI is going to replace. Now, we've got to assume at some point the financial piece of this will be handled, that it's not in anyone's interest to just let people, fall out of economic viability, right? And then my question is, whatever the percentage is of how many people are entrepreneurial, maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15%, does that number actually go up? If people don't have to do kind of the soul-crushing repetitive work, are there people who are like, well, if I can make enough money to live, and I now have these tools that give me all the skills that I didn't think I have, maybe I do want to revisit my dreams, right? And so, or does the percentage stay 1585? Well, I don't quite know what that number is, but for me, if AI provides this really remarkable capacity to do the things that you thought were limitations, then you can do anything you want. Well, what do you want to do? And then that, I think, if I go 5 years out, maybe 10 years out, that becomes our job. But is everybody ready to be that contemplative and ambitious? And I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a good answer for you. I wish I did.
I think about this a lot. Like, how I feel about how are we going to, when are people going to figure out how to manage quote unquote free time? Because we're very, very, very bad at that. We're bad at it in the moment. We don't know what future self wants to do. We don't have the skill set to wake up one morning and go, gosh, I could do just about anything, and then pick one thing. Like, nobody knows how to do this, and we don't teach it in schools. And so automating the heck out of everything and, agentifying everything. If the goal is, I guess the question is, what is the goal? Not to be all, other level about it, but like, what is the goal?
I don't know. I mean, part of the goal could be, listen, we're also moving into a world of hyper-personalization where maybe entertainment changes. And rather than going out to the movies, I can say, hey, I want to watch Star Wars, but I want it to star my kids. And I want to play Darth Vader and go make that movie. And we'll sit there and watch it as a family. So there might be, it's not just about accomplishing work. There's also, maybe things shift dramatically in how people spend their time, but I don't know. I have never in my life, I have always kind of lived at the intersection of storytelling and technology, trying to live on the leading edge. I've always had a really good capacity to kind of know what the future looks like. I feel like I've completely lost that. I don't I don't, what does it look like when all that work that takes up so much of all of our times is being done by other things? What do we then do? I do not believe for a second that people are just going to stop and do nothing.
No.
What are they going to do? And I think we're all going to have to confront that. So that's kind of where I am today.
I shouldn't dabble in so much dystopia, but occasionally that's where the brain goes. I saw this one movie and it was like a cartoon. I don't even know which one it was. It was one of Pixar movies or something. And at some point there's just these like conveyor belts that go through the whole city, and people are just the people are just like blobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, and then like they get a pellet for their food, and they get a pellet that says exercise, and they get a pellet that says sleep. Like, is that what we're going to be like? Or will people who haven't known about the level of was it WALL-E? Okay. Yeah, Shane, that's probably right. It's like, if somebody doesn't think they're creative and they have to do a little bit to get to a tool that's going to like blow their mind open of creativity, how do you get them to want to go to that tool? Like, you and I have had the experience of feeling like you came into your I am an artist.
The tools need to be at a different level. Right now, we're still very, very early, right?
True.
If you compare this to like the early days of the World Wide Web, we're like 95, 96.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like, 98, 99 where more people, there were tools that you could make websites. You didn't have to learn HTML. You did up front. With AI right now, we're still in that phase where you have to be pretty geeky to be a part of this. I think 2 years, maybe 3 years from now, the interfaces will get so intuitive and the outputs will be so magical that people won't have to learn to use AI. They'll just be using products that are empowered by it.
Exactly.
So
along those lines, like, how I was saying that you kind of like, for me recently, I've found myself taking certain things for granted, which feels a little bit sad in a way, but also good towards tinkerers. Yes, tools are currently good towards tinkerers. Exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm not a tinkerer, Vicki. That's my problem.
Yeah. You're a doer.
I'm a doer. But I'm going to get back to the tinkering. But what I wanted to share is something that I have found that's pretty cool is, as I get more and more comfortable with AI as just an extension of myself, I've had numerous experiences where something that I thought before I would never imagine as a normal part of everyday life, all of a sudden I find myself, it's part of a project. It's part of something I'm talking about, part of something I'm thinking about. And this happened earlier this week. A friend of one of the women in She Leads AI and I were together in Seattle earlier this week, and we were just doing a mastermind together on AI stuff. And we were talking about, gosh, how could you gather a whole bunch of data from people at a cocktail hour, for example? And we were riffing on like, you can just turn your phone on and listen or whatever. And then I started thinking about the Meta glasses, and I presented it as a completely reasonable solution to the challenge of how are we getting that information? How are we capturing a conversation? How are we capturing who's in the room? And even just like 3 or 4 months ago, I was like, that's ridiculous. That's horrible. That's going to ruin the world. There's no way we should do that. Mark Zuckerberg is evil. All he wants is our data. Now he wants our brain. But here I was already going like, okay, I knew about that. I knew it existed. I have thoughts and feelings about it. But here we were thinking about how it could make the world a much, much, much better place.
Yeah. The black and white thing is something that I think we all need to explore. So one of the things that brought us together, one of the things that's super important is community. So why don't you tell people about She Leads AI? I'll talk about the salon.
Well, I'm particularly excited to talk about and think about She Leads AI today because Adnan, his book, Adnan is our guest today, his book talks about the kind of things that we're doing in our communities, and some of it specifically related to She Leads AI. So She Leads AI is an organization. Our mission is to unite accomplished women to advance AI for global prosperity. That sounds very, very serious. And a lot of the work that we do is very serious, but we also don't take it overly seriously. For example, one of our members is teaching us how to make teams of AI personas. And we had a member jam earlier this week. Some of our friends couldn't, some of the women in the group couldn't make it. So we're going to drink green beer, if any of us drink green beer, on Monday is St. Patrick's Day, whatever day St. Patrick's Day is. And we're going to rewatch our webinar where one of our members taught us how to make AI personas. So Beautiful. We have fun while we're also learning things and kind of blowing our own minds. So we have courses, we do consulting, we do advocacy, and we have a membership. And our membership community is kind of aligned with what AI Salon is. So yeah. She Leads AI, and you can find out more about it at sheleadsai.ai.
Beautiful, terrific, and the salon. I'll do this quick so we can get a non up. If you go to the salon.ai, you can say join our community. The AI Salon was founded the week after ChatGPT came out. It's a group of about 3,000 AI optimists. Our journey to AI readiness in the salon is play first, mindfully create, and generously lead. And the generously lead thing is really fun. We just started, Vicky kicked these off, sessions called Learn Out Louds. So LOLs, LOLs, where the community is just teaching each other, here's something I learned. I hope you can learn it. So really, really generous group of people. So
wonderful humans.
Yeah. So with that, why don't we bring up our guest of honor?
Our guest of much, much honor.
Adnan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing really well. So fun to hear you both talk just now. It got me all energized. I'm like ready to go.
Well, Adnan, as we were thinking about which friendlies we should bring on the show in the beginning, people who we knew would roll with the punches of having a brand new endeavor. Your name came up right away. You were such a fan favorite at Festivus. Yeah, I'm so delighted to have a chance to visit with you again, even if I had to create a podcast just to hang out with you.
and prior to this, you taught me how to say your last name, and it's Iftekhar.
That's right.
Did I get it? Okay, good.
You got it.
No, I'm super excited about this. And yeah, you and I met through a bunch of different communities, back to the community thing. So what I would love to have you do, Adnan, is please just, tell us who you are, what you've been up to. And then we've got our 3 questions that we'll ask you after that. But tell us what you've been up to and what you're really excited about these days.
Totally. Thank you so much again for having me here. Super excited. Always fun to be one of the first folks on something, and that's why I'm so excited again. And when you reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, yes! I'm gonna try to make it happen the first date that you gave me, just because I've only been back in the U.S. for about 10, no, not even 10 days. Yeah, about 10 days actually. And it's been really a wild ride. But just a quick intro. My name is Adnan, as you all know, and I'm an AI humanist. And I really like to go all in on this title of what I am and what I stand for. Being an AI humanist, which a lot of people ask me, what is an AI humanist? And I'll let them know that that it's somebody who is really thinking about the potential of human development, of human enhancement, of human augmentation, and how can you use AI to help you be more human, to really rekindle all of the work that went into evolving into being where we are right now and how that appears in everybody's lives. Am I coming in clearly? I feel like I'm breaking up a little bit.
Nope, you sound good.
Oh. Okay, good. Excellent. Okay. So, and just so just a quick little intro on me. I was born in Mauritius, which is a little island off the coast of Africa. I grew up in Pakistan, Paris, and then came to the United States at age 18 to go to a small liberal arts college called Bennington College in Vermont. Yeah. And it was a wild and fun experience. And it was, going from a place like Pakistan, where not only you have grades, but you have ranks. So we were ranked 1 through 50 in my high school. Going to that, from that to a place where there's no grades in college really kind of opened up my eyes to like, what is this? Like, is this how you learn? You learn for the sake of learning. You don't learn for the sake of having a grade. What is that all about? And that just kind of like got me really excited. So instead of becoming a genetic engineer, I went into education. And the both of you were just talking about education, you know, and you just said, we don't teach this in school. But why don't we teach this in school? Like, you know, what is the purpose?
Yep.
What's the purpose of school? Why are we doing all of this stuff? Where else do you get grades? You don't get grades anywhere else in real life because you're teaching kids to go into the real life, but there's no grades in real life, right? Yeah. In real life, you have OKRs and KPIs and other things like that, right? You have feedback loops, all of those things, but you don't have grades, right? So why are we doing grades? Why don't we do OKRs and KPIs? Anyways, I could go on about that. And Kyle, you were talking about how people spend their time. And I really want to like, you know, focus and think about that. The quality of thinking about spending time versus investing time versus wasting time.
Yeah. That's great. And time, there's a writer named Joe Dominguez. He wrote a book called Your Money or Your Life.
Oh, yes.
And my big takeaway from that book was money is something you trade your time for. And time is the only thing you can't reclaim, right? So I'd love to tell us more about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 2 resources in life, money and time. You can make more money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
There's a great book called 4,000 Weeks, right? You have 4,000 weeks to live, right? And I'm 49, and if I live to be my life expectancy, I currently have 1 billion seconds to live. I'm a time billionaire, right? If I live to life expectancy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and at the same time, right? But like how you live that is really important, because there's another book I'm reading right now called Outlive, which talks about the difference between lifespan and health span, right? Like if my lifespan is 90, but my health span is 80, the last 10 years of my life are going to be lived in misery. Right. Yeah. So instead of increasing lifespan, which is what our current medical establishment focuses on, is increasing lifespan. We need to really focus on, I need to focus on, and I'll speak for myself, on increasing health span, right? Yeah. And how do you do that? How do you get to that place of increasing your health span while also increasing your lifespan, right?
Right. Yeah. And AI might buy us that time, right? If you believe the life escape velocity people, that if we live for the next 5 years, you're going to live for another 100. But let's not go to that future just yet. You know, talk to me about how do you feel AI buys us time right now, or maybe just for you personally, how is AI allowing you to live better time, or take more advantage of those billion seconds you've got, you braggart?
And at the same, like thinking about that also is like, it could, yes, I have a billion seconds, but accidents can happen at any moment, right?
Right.
You don't know that.
Right.
So, right, like at the same time, live each day as if it were your last.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't know. You don't know these things. And so what's really important to me, I come back to this, is the human relationships, which is why, again, I call myself an AI humanist, because I can double down on human relationships and use AI intentionally, responsibly, and ethically to help me augment my time, augment my productivity, accelerate my whatever it is that I want to do, the good that I want to do in the world, right? That I feel, like having a meaningful, positive impact in the world.
Yeah. So I've been starting to think about not time and not money, because neither of them really make sense in the way I was brought up with those concepts anymore. Because of AI, time doesn't make sense in the same way it used to. Time is not the same thing as significance anymore, right? It used to be, in a lot of things that I do in my life anyway, the more time I put, the more important it must be to me. But now some of the very most important things I do to make an impact in the world are done in a fraction of the time. And I don't want to say that makes it less meaningful. It doesn't. That's going to be hard for us to all figure out. Things that we do, symbolically we spend time symbolically to indicate that something is important. And now we don't have to do that anymore. Like writing a letter of recommendation, for example, is a typical example. A performance review, another example. So, and then money doesn't make sense as much anymore either, because, if you think about like, how do you trade your time for money, or do you trade your time for money? That's different. So what I've been trying to think about, and this is one of the reasons why I was so excited when I was looking through your book, is it's really, I feel like it's more and more about how are we able to utilize our best, most immaculate energy. For example, if I don't waste all of my brain calories on a spreadsheet with multiple messed up columns, which would be a double black diamond task for my brain, right? Like I would need to go to bed afterward. If I don't have to do that, then I can go out that night and hang out with my friends because I preserved my best energy. So we think about productivity, and it is a component of that, but it's really about like, how could we live a much more human, humane, connected, interconnected life using these tools?
And here's the thing, right? Is that there's no wrong answer in all of this, right? It's a choice, right? Like the things that I like to invest my time in is not necessarily the same thing that Anne and Kyle, the two of you, would like to invest your time in, right? Because we all are individuals. Kyle, you were just talking about personalization, right? And there's this meme where it's like, I don't want AI to write books or create songs for me. I want to do that. I want AI to like do the dishes and do the laundry. I like folding clothes. I don't want AI to fold my clothes. I like doing that. That's when I get my best thinking done, right? There's a great book by Manoj Zamorodi called Bored and Brilliant, because at this time in life, we're not bored anymore. Right? We don't have the chance to be bored, but boredom is where we have our greatest thoughts, where we have our exciting moments of revelation. Some of the only places where that happens right now is when you're taking a shower, because the submersible iPhone and Pixel phones have not been created yet.
Right.
Right? So you can't have your phone while taking a shower, right? So those are the types of things that I think about. And yes, but like, again, it's all individual, right? I like folding clothes. I like doing that. So I don't want AI to do that for me.
Right.
At the same time, like, I don't feel like I can sing. So I want AI to sing for me, right? Like if I write lyrics and I'm not going to sing those lyrics, I want AI to sing those lyrics for me because it's going to do a better job, or somebody else, right? Like but that takes more effort.
Well, there's
and so that's the other part of it.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, about effort and what comes from effort, right? Like, what is the effort that you want to put into this? How much effort you want to put into this? What is the outcome of this, right? So if I can invest half an hour to do a 3 hours amount of work so I can be more present with my family in the evening, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to question that, right? That's going to be, because that's my priority, right? Yeah. So and that's the other thing, is thinking about priorities, right? There's no such thing. The word priority was pluralized in the 1900s.
Ooh, snap.
Oh, because there was only one.
Only one?
It's the one thing that comes before everything else.
So wait, so that's
the one thing.
So priorities is the industrialization of tasks? Wow.
Exactly. Wow. Industrial age is when the word priority got pluralized, is the industrial age.
Oh, I just became the world's most annoying human. Yeah. Now I'm
every bar, every meal. That's amazing. That's amazing. Let me throw another thing out here, and I'd love to get your thought on it, because it's a corollary to what Anne was talking about. And it's this idea of, in the current world, we place value on how much time it took us to produce something, right? Especially in the creative arts. Mm-hmm. I think people feel they take great pride in the amount of time and angst they put into something. And if you didn't have to do that time and angst, other things become possible. I see Jim Ross is here. One of my favorite things Jim Ross did is he learned on one of the TikTok lives how to make songs using Suno. And while he was learning it, he goes, oh, I just had a meeting with a client, and he made a song for the client and sent it to him. And 5 minutes later, booked the business, because the client perceived that thing that just took Jim 5 minutes as this really valuable thing. He really sort of went out of his way, but it didn't take him a lot of time, but the perceived value of it was very high. So I'm just curious as your thought on that sort of shifting, balance of value.
So I'm going to give you a story. A friend of mine, his name is Mark Firehammer, reached out to me on Facebook, and I haven't talked to him in a couple of decades. And we used to be out in Western Massachusetts together. And he's a dancer. I'm a dancer. We used to dance together. Anyways, long story short, he is also a musician, and he used to do street art and musician. And he's like, had records published and everything. And I introduced him to, by the way, Suno. In the language Urdu, Suno means listen. S-U-N-O. Suno means listen in the Urdu language. So cool. Not sure how it's related. I'm sure it is. It's really amazing. but so I introduced him to Suno on January 3rd or 4th. I forget when it was, like right after the New Year. And he was blown away. And he had like 40 songs that he had written that he wanted to publish. And he came to me 2 weeks later and he says, I want to share this with you. And I want to do a podcast with you and talk about what I think AI stands for, which is Artists Imagined.
Oh, it's so great. It's so good.
It's so good. And he was able to create, like put his work without going to a studio, without going to all, he had these 40 songs written and he published them in 13 days, right? He got this thing to, like, it was in his mind. And he had like a country music thing going, a disco thing going, like, he had different genres for all of these things and different voices. And he said he probably had about 2,500 iterations total of songs that he did over that time to get to the point of getting the 40 that worked for him.
Wow.
Right? That is the thing, right? The art is knowing when to stop, right? As an artist, you're like, yes, that's the one, or no, that's not quite right. So that those 2,000 are him not finding it. And the ones that made the cut, that's the art, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's jump in. So one of the conceits of the show is that we're going to ask every guest the same 3 questions. You ready? So
I am.
So I'll give you question number 1, and this should be a fun one. I'm actually really curious about this one. What was the tipping point where you knew you had to go all in on AI, and then what happened after that?
I'm going to give you 3 answers for this. Okay. Because there are 3 specific points where like it hit me, right? So the first one, I mean, there was a tipping point like on December 1st of 2022. Like there was something that happened to me. Like I was talking to an English teacher and, there was that point, but I don't want to go there because that was like, like the moment, right? What really when it was March 2023. And this was because there was a lot of rain, which is happening right now in California. And my spouse and I, we owned a house in Redwood City. I've already given it away, which is in Silicon Valley, and it was being rented out, and because of the rain, there was all this flooding that happened, and it was going to cost us a whole bunch of money to replace the French drain, which you can't see. And anyone will tell you when you've got a house, if you want to do something with money, you want to be able to see what you've done, because if it goes, like all out. Anyways, long story short, I asked ChatGPT 3.5. Bing, right, and Bard, right, because those were the names of what is now Copilot and Gemini, right, and GPT. But back then, those 3, I asked them at like 10 o'clock at night, right, like I gave them all the information. In about 45 minutes, each one of them had given me the answer. Yeah, you should sell, right? Wow. And the next morning, I got on a phone call with my financial advisor, and it took him an hour and a half to get to that same point of telling me, yes, you should sell. But the big thing in all of this is that he said, oh crap, I'm going to be out of a job. And I'm like, no, you're not. Now what you can do is talk to me about my emotions. Like, how do I feel like after, if I'm going to sell this house where my kids were born, what is that going to be? What emotional impact is that going to have on me?
That's
right?
Great. Great
you
insight.
can have the technology run through all the numbers, right? All the analysis. If you want, if you love doing that, do it, right? But verify, right? And then you can talk to me about the human connection, what we can do as humans around this, right? So that was like point number one. Then the second point was October 2024, where I did vibe coding and I created 12 apps in 1 month. The first one took me 4 days. The 12th one took me 4 hours. The one that took me 4 hours, I put in for an NVIDIA developer contest and I came top 10 in the world.
Wow.
Dude, that's so cool. And
it took me longer.
Not having coded before?
I mean, I coded 25 years ago, right? But yeah, no, I wasn't doing any of that. But again, it's like it took me longer to create the video to publish than it did for me to create the app.
That's amazing.
So that was number two. Number three was right after that, coming onto AI Salon and meeting Brian Moynihan, with whom I wrote a book. Him and I wrote AI Culture Shift, right? And that process took 6 weeks. I calculated it would have taken us 6 months without AI. And we have a portion in here around how we wrote the book as well. But community, right? Like the community, the AI Salon community brought us together. We had multiple connections and we got together. We still hang out every day. I was on a call with him this morning. And like we're hanging out every single day. I've met him twice in person now in 2 different countries other than the United States. I've met him in Pakistan and in Saudi Arabia. We met in Pakistan in January and Saudi Arabia in February, right? Like, so, I mean, I'm like, okay, the third time we meet is going to have to be a different continent now. We've got to go to that point. But what this led me to, right, like, is writing a book with my 11-year-old daughter.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Oh, what is it? Your journey through?
Oh.
Yeah, it's a journey through AI, emotions, and climate change. So it's a book that she wanted to write. And this will get a kick out of, right? Like, so whenever I do voice mode on ChatGPT with folks that are, you know, my age range or even slightly younger than me, they're like, oh my gosh, this is magic. To her, it was not. My 11-year-old, she's like, yeah, this is like Google 2.0.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She talks to Google Home. And she'll, you know, have it turn on the lights and do this and do that. But to her, this was Google 2.0. So that was the second. The third thing. Now I'm working on a picture book with my 9-year-old about AI.
Oh,
amazing.
Right? So that's the other thing that's happening. So both my littlest children are going to be published authors this year, right?
So amazing.
So and for me, it's about like the possibility of what you can do with all of this, right? So these are the 3 points where I was just like, it kind of reinvigorated me to go all in again and all in again and all in again.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I think we're waiting for okay, Anne's there.
Oh,
all right.
I'm trying. I just wrote classic. I got to plug in my computer.
Oh, charger.
That's hilarious. Right, Anne, why don't you?
I have a question for you.
Yeah,
I have a question for you. By the way, how freaking awesome would it be if AI could just find our chargers for us? I mean, the number of things that I do in a given day that squander so much of my immaculate energy.
You can just have your humanoid robot follow you around and put things back in the
That's what I need.
We're going to wireless chargers soon. I mean, charging is going to be wireless. I think in the next 2 years, we're going to have wireless charging. I mean, it already exists. It's just going to become a lot more prevalent.
Yep.
Adnan, we have a question for you, but first I have to ask you if you remember a Saturday Night Live skit. I think there were a couple of them actually, where Chris Kattan was in a backpack and he was a travel stenographer. And his purpose was, so you would put your backpack on and Chris Kattan, I think that's his name, was in there. And he would, while you were talking to your spouse and, you know, grousing at each other, he would take notes on who said what. So the next time you get in a fight and you're like, remember that time when you said whatever. Okay, so now we have our travel stenographers. Everything that we do now, whether it's looking for a charger or proving that you were right and your spouse was wrong, AI can help with.
There you go.
AI can help with. I have to tell. I have to tell you, like, you know, like I record so many things now on here, and to get the transcript so that I can put it through. I mean, it's so wild. It's so wild.
Everything. I don't know what we did before. We had our own travel stenographers. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, so what have you discovered or rediscovered about yourself because of AI?
Yeah. So, of course, you know, when I got these 3 questions, I put them through my, you know, digital twin to kind of make sure that we were on the same page, virtual page and on non-virtual page. And some of the things I didn't agree with. So the first question I rewrote totally, you know, like I was just like, no, that doesn't make sense. But the second one, there were a few things that my digital twin said that I kind of agree with. The first one is speed over perfection, right? Like if I had waited for either of these books to be perfect, these would still be in my brain. They probably wouldn't even be on paper right now, right? And same thing with the app, right? Like the apps are not perfect, but they're good enough to publish, right? So speed over perfection, so I can do things. And the more I do things, the better I become at doing the things. Like I said, you know, in 1 month, 4 days to make the first app, 4 hours to make the 12th app, right? Like it just, the speed has gotten better and better and better, right? The other one is like continuing to have that curiosity, right? So I totally, you know, Kyle, when you talked about play and not being able to play as much and all of that, I mean, I just keep coming back to play. Like, how can I play more? What can I do to play? What can I do to do these things? So it's like, you know, Mark kind of like brought me back into like my mode around like Suno and like, you know, and music. And now I'm really into this kick around like, you know, videos. So I'm doing, especially since we were traveling, I've done all these travel videos, and now I'm bringing them into captions.ai. I don't know if you played with that one, but it's such a cool tool. And I'm kind of like repurposing them and redoing them using captions. And my niece is deaf, and she saw my reel with the captions on it. She's like, that is so cool that you did that. And she was able to follow along. So it's like, you know, I'm like rediscovering this thing. I'm having a new connection with my niece as well because of this. So curiosity, continuing to be curious and play more and more and more. And then the third thing again is like human intelligence still wins, right? Like, I mean,
you broke up.
Just doubling down on this. Oh, human intelligence still wins so far. Right. I mean, we still have the emotions, we still have the action, we still have the impetus to, like, you know, being able to, like, again, 2,500 iterations, right, to get those 40 songs, right? Like, you know, that took a lot of work, and that was all human intelligence. You couldn't tell, an AI couldn't have done that. Right.
Well,
that had to be Mark that did that.
Yeah, where he's going with that is those are the things that represent his voice that he wants other people to experience, right? So it's about connecting with other people in that case, right? So good.
Totally.
Okay, good. So last question. What does AI readiness mean to you? And what is your advice for someone starting the journey?
Yeah. And again, it's, you know, I just go back to play. Right? Play. Be curious, play, like just the things that I was just talking about. Also, just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Using something to like push yourself in a different space. You don't need to be a programmer to code. You don't need to be a writer to write. Right. You don't need to be a polyglot to speak other languages, right?
Right.
All of these things, right? The thing that you've always wanted to do it, right? Like think about Ikigai, right? Do you all know the Ikigai concept, right? And for those that don't, it's like these four circles, like what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at, and where that meets in the middle, right? Like that's where the sweet spot is. And if you don't know what your ikigai is, there's a ChatGPT ikigai that you can get, and you can just,
find it.
like, just figure it out, right? And it'll help you get started at the very least. And you haven't, like, you know, in terms of getting started on any of this, try things out. And don't try things out once, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, the response it gave me is crappy. It's not a it's a chat bot. It's not a monologue bot, right?
Yeah, oh, that's great. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Have a chat. Have a chat.
Have a chat. Just have at it. Well, I'm you know, I'm really glad. I feel like the rediscovering the sense of play is my big one for the week. So the fact that you're there too is that's really encouraging. And this has been awesome. There have been many nuggets said today that people are, you know, resonating with, and thank you so much for coming and being willing to be with us on this wacky journey as we figure out what the hell we're doing.
Oh my gosh, you're so awesome. And by the way, I also just want, in my journeys, I met this woman, Yana. I'm forgetting her last name, but she leads Mia AI. I don't know if you've heard of Mia AI. Yeah, and I would love to connect the two of you.
That would be
because
awesome.
she's doing some. We met at Leap and in Saudi Arabia, and she's doing some incredible work. And I, again, you know, I'm doing my best to support the women in my life, and the more I can uplift them, happy to be an ally and a support in whatever way is possible. So. Yeah,
that would be terrific. This has been so good and so invigorating. Like I feel I have 10,000 times more energy right now than I did when we got on the call.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was a pleasure.
Kyle, are we done, or do we have another thing that we have to talk about? We're done. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.